It is 6 p.m. The most exciting window in sports is open now. Bets are being made. Lineups are being locked. This is Heat Check, presented by BetMGM. I'm Brendan Glasheen, new to the program, joined by Preston Johnson, Matt Moore. You know who they are. And we're giving you everything you need to get smart about tonight's NBA games. 13-game slate, including the game and the team you have to bet and the player prop you have to take. Everything we talk about, picks, data, all of it available on the award-winning Action Network app. Well, we look at this slate tonight, and guys, there's no game that jumps out to us because of some key injuries. There are some key spots for a lot of teams tonight, but there's no marquee game that we feel is really important to hone in on. So we're going to have some fun and build ourselves a Moneyline parlay. Each of us will give a team we think is going to get a win tonight. Preston, we will start with you, sir. Who do you like tonight?
Let's start with the team that started 1-16 and somehow has won 6 straight games. I don't know if it's the Jalen Green effect. I believe they're about 29 points better per 100 possessions when he's not playing versus when they are. He's like a negative 22 on the floor, and they're a +7 team when he's off. It's just insane. It's probably fluky to some degree, but point being, no KD, no Aldridge, no Joe Harris. Can Harden do it back in his revenge game in Houston? Look, I like the +150 as this kind of a game that's probably closer to a coin flip than the current price, personally, if this Houston run is at least anything reputable. So I'll roll with them for what I think is a 3-way Moneyline dog parlay. So this might pay pretty decently.
Matt Moore has already played this, everybody. He told us right before we went live. He is a man of the team. He is all in. What's your team, though, Matt? You've already hinted at the fact that ours might hit and yours might not.
Yeah, because I think if we're getting started and we want to, take a risk here, what better way to do it than with the Detroit Pistons? That's the team that you definitely want money on. I have the Pistons on the spread tonight, +5.5. I also will go ahead and put them in this money line. I actually have this as a pick 'em, so I'll go ahead and put them in the spot. The Wizards have been in a tailspin. They have not played well over the last 2 weeks. They have fallen off defensively. They have fallen off offensively. Spencer Dinwiddie has been limited. They've had guys in and out. I think that they're struggling on both ends of the floor right now. Part of this is that the Pistons are slowly improving to something closer to a normal NBA team and not just the worst team of all time. And so I will continue to think the market is underrating them, and I will go ahead and grab Detroit at +170 to add to our parlay.
Excellent. My pick tonight, I'm from Boston, so it already comes off as a homer pick as I'm new to this show. The Boston Celtics are on the money line tonight. They did play last night against the Lakers. They stay right in the same hotel in all likelihood, visiting the Clippers tonight. Boston is a 4.5-point dog. You can get them on the money line at +150. It has dropped to +140. I think not because of the Jaylen Brown news, but with Paul George now being a late add to the injury report on the Clippers side. Boston's been good in this spot, 4-1 on the second night of a back-to-back straight up this season, 7-4 straight up and against the spread on after a loss. So the Celtics have responded in this spot. And last night, that game against the Lakers got some revenge. It was a good spot for LA. Celtics didn't play a ton of minutes in that game. Jason Tatum was their high minute man with 34 minutes. And I feel like their backcourts match up pretty well. Clippers have been good at home for sure, but I like the Celtics tonight. So this underdog moneyline parlay pays out 15-1. You can get it for $15.60 if you bet $100. And like we said, Matt Moore has already played this. So Matt, I might follow your lead on this one once this is all said and done. So best of luck.
All together now.
Houston, Detroit, and Boston. Underdog moneyline parlay. There you go. So that's the way we start the show. Let's move on. Betting is believing. One spread or total from each of us that we are on tonight. Preston, we will go to you. And speaking of back-to-backs, I just mentioned that on the Celtics side, you like a team here tonight on the second night of a back-to-back.
The New York Knicks, yep, they are on a back-to-back. They just took care of San Antonio last night. That is worthwhile to a point spread historically. That's why you'll see inflated lines sometimes if you're just looking, kind of eyeing stuff as you go along and you're not following the numbers too closely. This one I think is too extreme, especially for a Pacers team that I believe the organization basically just said everyone's available and on the trade table, like let's figure something out. So how do they respond to that? How do they react? They're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. Knicks have been pretty good the last year and a third under Thibodeau, defending the 3-point line. They've made some adjustments, with Kemba Walker basically not playing, and improved some of their starting lineup minutes. And I just got to roll with my numbers actually under 4 here, even with the back-to-back against the Pacers. And I think some of the metrics are saying the Pacers have outperformed their record, which is true. They've lost a lot of one-score games late, a few in overtime. They're 10-16. They're probably more like a 500 team, but still, so are the Knicks. They actually are a 500 team. They've also underachieved to some degree. I think, again, getting the 5, one of the more key numbers, most landed number on in hoops is 5. So I will take the 5 with the Knicks tonight.
Yeah, just from a news perspective too, you wonder what's going on there with the Pacers, right? With this rebuild stuff, that the first time they're playing since the Shams report. Matt, you had something there?
Yeah, actually, I've talked to league sources this week. They've indicated that Domantas Sabonis has been unhappy in Indiana for not just this season, but going back last season. Preston, I do think it's kind of an interesting question, though, of when you have a team that's so much worse than their record. I think there's 2 ways you can go. You can either say they're going to get it together, this is an outlier performance, they're going to regress. In this case, I'm with you. I'm on the Knicks tonight. One of the reasons I'm on the Knicks is because I just feel like the Pacers are going through that kind of season where nothing goes right for them. I think that's like a good spot. Even if the numbers say that the Pacers are a little bit better, it never winds up seeming to work out for them. As somebody that's bet the Pacers several times this season, I can attest to that.
There you go.
Okay, Matt. So you're on a favorite tonight.
I like the Cavs -2.5. So I've got this number at Cavs -3 for the entire season. That factors in a 2-week stretch where the Cavs were basically without their 3 bigs, which is a key part of them. Evan Mobley's been one of the most impactful players in the league, let alone amongst rookies. He's back. They've got their front court ready to go. They've been playing better. Darius Garland, I think, is going to wind up being a serious most improved player candidate. So I've got this at -3, and then you've got DeMar DeRozan out with COVID protocol. So that to me gives me a pretty big edge on this line. I think that's DeRozan's probably worth 1.5 to 2 to the spread. So I think there's good value on the Cavs here. The Cavs, here's an important thing. The Bulls are the number 1 team in transition offense. That's their bread and butter. They are the best team in transition by a wide margin. However, the Cavs are a top 5 team in transition defense. So they've got a good way to counter that. In the half court, the Cavs are also a better defensive team. Now, this might wind up being a slugfest. I can see playing the under here as well because the Cavs offense is nothing to write home about. But I do like the Cavs to go ahead and cover the spread at home as a small favorite in a spot without DeRozan. Notably, the Cavs 2-0-1 this season as a home favorite. That's a tiny sample, but I think it does kind of show you the market has been slow to adapt to the Cavs being good. And I think that this number continues to reflect that even with the Cavs as a favorite versus Chicago.
And by the way, I'll just jump in real quick. I think 5 or 6 of those transition opportunities each game come from Alex Caruso stealing it or deflecting it. He's also out along with DeRozan. So do not mind the Cavs look here.
Yeah, you could argue that's a bigger piece for them defensively when you face a guard-oriented team like Cleveland for sure. And speaking of the total, as Matt brought up, it's at 211.5. And to add to his note there, as far as how they do at home, they're 8-3-1 against the spread at home this season, 8-2-1 against the spread after a loss. They have lost 2 straight games, though. So Cavs at home taking on the Bulls. And Matt likes them at -2.5, even at 3 when he looked at his model. On my side of things, I felt okay about this, and I still feel okay about it now. There is questions about Luka Doncic. If he plays this game, he's questionable, but I like the Memphis Grizzlies at -2.5. It's interesting. Last night, I felt there was an opportunity for Luka not to play last night against Brooklyn, but as we find out in the NBA, national TV game, these guys get up for those games. They want to play in those games. So indeed, Luka played. So did Kristaps. I thought Kristaps might get scratched for that game. It turns out he did not. So Grizzlies without Ja Morant at home. I do like the Grizzlies here. They're playing defense since Ja has gone down in the 5-game win streak since he went out in that Atlanta Hawks game. They are allowing just 90 points per game. Before the injury, it was well over 110 points per contest. So I like the Grizzlies. They've won every game by at least 7 points in the absence of their star point guard. They're 8-5 at home against the spread this year, 6-3 against the spread as a home favorite. And the Mavs, they have not been a good team on the second night of a back-to-back, just a 3-game sample, but they are 0-3 against the spread on the second night of a back-to-back. I also factor in the fact that they blew a big lead last night to Brooklyn. That was a game it felt they had in hand. Say Brooklyn threw in the towel, which, Matt, you've pointed this out on Twitter a few times. Like, Brooklyn can just kind of waltz in these games and somehow get themselves back in them. So there was an opportunity last night for Dallas to pull away. They did not. So I like Memphis minus 2.5 tonight at home against the Mavericks.
Yeah, I got the worst of this number. I got this last night at 5 and regretting kicking myself for not waiting and getting better value on this once the injury news came in. Mm-hmm. I will just say, however, it's interesting to look at in the Action Network app, which you can download right now and get the best information. The money's coming in on the Grizzlies. So 46% of the bets to 67% of the money. But we've tracked 4 sharp moves in on Dallas, and we're seeing that number go the opposite direction. So I'm getting a little bit nervous about it. I'm with you. The Grizzlies have played better. To me, it just comes down to this Mavericks team has been so inconsistent. Their record does not reflect how not good they've been. They've struggled on both ends of the floor. And you mentioned that loss last night. Talking to players, they always talk about how you can get over a blowout loss pretty easy. You know you can play better than that. You're a professional basketball player. You can get over that. However, a gut punch game at home, traveling, back-to-back. I think it's a bad spot. I'm with you on Memphis.
Okay, cool. It's now time to spin the wheel. I've been looking forward to this. This is like the most exciting part of the show, I've come to find out. So there are props that we need to get to on this wheel. And when we spin it, we will each weigh in. There are 6 bets on the wheel. Gifford, let's go for it. Let's spin this sucker. Okay, Preston, you're going first. Lonzo Ball, points, rebounds, assists prop. And you like the over on 25.5.
Yeah, I have to now that we've mentioned Alex Caruso and DeRozan being out. Levine's going to get a ton of usage, but Lonzo Ball obviously can do a little bit of everything with his assists and rebounds. But if his points are there, it comes down to if he's hitting threes or not a lot of the time. Last game he played over 40 minutes. He had, I think, 26 and 7 or something in the range. He got to 34 total points, assists, rebounds. So 25.5 is a little low based on him probably getting to 40 plus minutes and the extra usage with his shot, assuming it's a nearly close game down the stretch against Cleveland. I will say this. There is a shop that is offering, and probably a few shops offering something similar on triple-double for Lonzo Ball tonight. Maybe worth a look. It's like 32-1 to 30-1 range. Can he get a triple-double like 3% of the time to break even on that? I think so. I think this is a game. He's getting to 10 points way often enough. And if he's facilitating a little more and getting rebounds and playing 40-plus minutes, I think that's mispriced. So people can take a look, shop around. But I think that's worth mentioning as well.
All right. Matt's turn. Let's spin it. We got to get some music behind this. Gary Trent Jr., assists. Let's go, Matt.
All right. So Gary Trent Jr. is obviously is just back for the Raptors. He has gone over in this in 6 of the 7 past games. Also, when you look at the way that the Thunder play, the Thunder are giving up the 3rd most assists per 100 possessions to guards in the entire NBA. So their scheme very specifically opens up opportunities. They're slow on rotations, on closeouts, which gives him more opportunities to find those kick out opportunities. I think that they'll close in on the shooter as Gary Trent Jr., but he can dribble a little bit off. He can do a little bit off the dribble. I like him to go over on assists tonight. That number I think is too low. I like the over on Gary Trent Jr. assist at 1.5.
All right. I guess it's my turn. Let's do it. All right, Kyle Lowry tonight taking on, this is a big game. We kind of discussed this a little bit off the top in the sense that this could be a big game between the Bucks and the Heat if indeed Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo were playing. As it turns out, they're not. So I looked at Tyler Hero's number first, just for context, and that number just keeps climbing for Hero, who is the leader right now as the 6th man of the year, if you wanted to bet that now. I think 22.5 is too high, so I go down to Kyle Lowry at 15.5. It's at minus 125 on BetMGM. In 7 games without Jimmy Butler, and I think it's 6 games without Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry's gotten to this number 4 times, and overall, he's got there in 4 of the last 6 games. I think he realizes in these big games, he usually comes to play, and it's a spot. Look, they need scoring somehow, and Milwaukee, granted, is healthier as far as their backcourt with Middleton and Holiday back in the mix entirely. It's a big game because I think, Matt, as you pointed out, this is a tiebreaker scenario tonight for these two teams. They have split the series so far. So this one could come back and haunt one of these teams if they go down. I'm curious what you guys think. I feel like Lowry's in a spot tonight. Now, and look, in 2 games against Milwaukee this year, he's scored in single digits. So I'm taking a little bit of a risk here on Kyle Lowry to get over 15.5 points.
My worry would be some of these Heat games, especially when they've had Butler or Bam out, they're down 30 by the third quarter. And it just is like turns. I don't know what it is. They've been super just wide variance, and sometimes they've been blowing teams out themselves though, when they have showed up. So I guess the concern would be the Bucks just way more healthy, taking it to them, and Lowry's not getting enough minutes in a potential blowout. I know some people that laid the Bucks at 6.5. So I guess that would be my one concern. If he ends up getting to the minutes requirement, then I agree. Like 15.5 is probably too low on the point side because they'll be needing him to do a little bit more. But that would be my only concern, is they've just had these weird spots where as a team, they're not very good without 2 of their best all around players.
Yeah,
so
the spread tells you that, right, Matt? Because it's at 6.5, and that's been pretty steady throughout the day.
Yeah, so I think I often say, like, to me, the biggest edge in the NBA is not injuries, it's motivation. And I think the Heat and Bucks obviously have a distaste for one another. The Bucks remember getting bounced by the Heat 2 years ago in the bubble. They remembered it last year in their matchups. They remembered it especially in that playoff series. The Heat took the first game of this season series, which was the Bucks were without almost everybody, but they bounced back and got the win. Bear in mind that if this comes down to a playoff seeding situation, tonight's winner will have guaranteed at least a split of the season series. That does matter. These are games that I think the Bucks get up for. So even without Butler, I think that kind of checks out the motivational edge or lack thereof for the Bucks. They'll want to put the hammer down. I'm a little bit nervous that the Bucks might put on a defensive clinic tonight. I wouldn't go over, but I can't blame you just because Lowry's going to get the minutes and usage, provided it's not a blowout.
Right. And again, it was tempting to look Tyler Hero's way because of all the shots he's getting off the bench. I mean, he's shooting well into the high teens, low 20s as far as field goal attempts. But I feel at 22.5, the number, rightfully so, continues to climb, and it's just a little risky, I feel, on that side of things. So I decided to go with Lowry, and 15.5 is the number that it's sitting at right now. Okay, so on this show, you guys have done this before, and I'm probably more in this category, the public. I sometimes we need education here. In our final segment, it's an old axiom in betting: fade the public, because you guys, you watching, don't have a clue about what you're talking about. We're going to prove it. We're going to ask you, which we did already on Twitter, Steph Curry's three-pointer prop. And to give some context, Steph Curry is 16 threes away from breaking Ray Allen's three-point record, which, by the way, I was at the game that Ray Allen set that record against the Lakers. It was kind of cool because Reggie Miller was courtside with Kevin Harlan on the broadcast, and it was a nice little moment there. His mom was there and everything too. So it was pretty cool. Big night for the Celtics. They lost the game. Kendrick Perkins came back from injury. Anyway, that's the situation here for Steph Curry. Can't break the record tonight. Maybe he could, because he needs 16 to break the record. His three-point prop is set at 5.5. We asked the people. It's way favoring over Preston. 83% of the public believes Steph Curry is going to hit over 5.5 three-pointers. What do you think?
I think that's, for one, I was shocked it was that high. I don't know if we've ever had a discrepancy that large, at least in the Heat Check shows that I've done. I like the other side. And if there's one person in the world I don't want to bet against for a three-point prop, it's Steph Curry, clearly, in the history of the NBA. But look, they're 14-point favorites for a reason. No Lillard, no CJ. Anthony Simons has missed the last 2 games. I think he's questionable. Nasir Little's out. Like, this could absolutely just be a blowout. And is he chucking up threes, let alone is he even playing in the second half much? If it is, Golden State's been pretty serious in everything they've done this year, game to game. Even get a better vibe than some of their championship level teams where they would coast for 3 quarters and then surge in the fourth. They've just taken it to teams right out of the gate. It's hard to make 6 threes in a game, man. I got to say under, despite the 83%. Yeah, that blew me away. 5 out of 6 viewers are saying he's going to make 6 or more in a blowout against Portland.
What do you got, Matt? You saying under or over?
Yeah, I'm going to be a hater here of the people. I'm going to go under as well with Preston. Mine is entirely schematic. So while the Blazers obviously have injuries, none of that influences their defensive scheme. The Blazers run two primary defensive schemes. They switch and they play at the level, which means they blitz the ball handler at the level to get the ball out of his hands. Now, Curry doesn't, he's not like Damian Lillard or James Harden where they bring the ball up and they just have it all the time. He runs a lot of off-ball movement, but it does make it more important in terms of getting the ball out of his hands. When Steph tries to run pick and roll, he's going to get blitzed and they're going to try and get the ball out of his hands immediately. The Blazers will probably double him as soon as he gets over half court. I think it's going to be tough for him to get those shots up, especially because it'll be so easy for the Warriors to get quality looks everywhere else because the Blazers defense is horrible. So if you're Curry and you do want to get the win because that's how he thinks. Plus, I will also say this. Would it be great if he broke the record at home? Sure. If he gets a chance at it, he'll definitely go for it. But if he slow rolls this a little bit, he can break it in Madison Square Garden, where he had his first real breakout game as a star a couple of years ago, many years ago now. On that kind of stage, I kind of think he'll slow play it and want to break it on national TV next Tuesday in Madison Square Garden. So I'm going to go under and say Steph doesn't quite get to the 5.5 over.
Yeah, if he waits to try and do it at home, he'd have to wait till December 20th, which is a Monday night game against Sacramento. And come on, that seems a little ridiculous unless he's sitting out back-to-backs for some reason. But the second night of a back-to-back would be, Matt, that Knicks game, that would be pretty cool. That would be must-see stuff at MSG, that's for sure. Okay, well, you're going to be a hater, I'm going to be a sucker, and I'm going to go with the public, and I'm going to take the over because he's done this now, guys, in 5 of the last 7 games. He could do this in the first half tonight, for crying out loud, with no Lillard, no McCollum. You mentioned it. Simons is questionable. That's according to the Blazers official website. And the Blazers, they're a mess, right? The Lillard news comes out today that he's going to have an operation done. The collapsed lung for McCollum. Who knows what kind of effort we get tonight? Now, on the other side of the coin, you could argue, well, is he even going to get many minutes tonight? Because he might only have to play 25, if that, minutes, and he's out of the game with 3 or 4 made threes, and the Warriors are already up 30. Blazers do allow the second most made threes. I'm going to take the over, but I would just caution folks to maybe take a look at Jordan Poole because his number's a little more reasonable at 2.5. So, and that's a case for Jordan Poole. If Klay Thompson's coming back anytime soon, Jordan Poole ain't coming out of the game. That dude is still learning how to become a budding star in this league. So, but I don't know. It'd be fun. I think that there's a lot of things that check off the box that he could do it because it's just that lopsided of a matchup tonight between the Blazers and the Golden State Warriors. So I like the over. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. First of all, I didn't even say this off the top. Thank you to both of you for welcoming me here. I'm really looking forward to working with you guys down the road.
Glad to have you on, man. It's been fun.
Thank you. All right. So to recap, Matt's got Cavaliers -2.5, Gary Trent Jr. over an assist and a half, Steph Curry under 5.5 threes. Preston's got the Knicks +5, Lonzo Ball over 25.5 points, rebounds, assists. He's also taken the under on Steph Curry. And I've got Grizzlies -2.5, Kyle Lowry over 15.5 points. And I'll take the over on Steph Curry tonight. Before we go, Matt, would you like to plug the Buckets podcast? What do you got coming up with Raheem this week?
Yeah, check out the Buckets podcast. We've got a breakdown of the Wednesday slate as you catch this. If you want a late look at the lines and the best angles from professional bettor Raheem Palmer. Our Friday happy hour breaking down where the totals have been this season. Next Tuesday, breaking down the Knicks and the Warriors, as obviously Steph might be going for that record then. So make sure to download and subscribe to Buckets podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Almost forgot too. Moneyline, underdog Moneyline parlay that Matt has already bet. Houston, Detroit, Boston Moneyline, 15-1. Get involved. That's going to do it for us. For Preston and Matt, Brendan Glasheen saying so long, and be sure to keep it locked into the Action Network app. And this was Heat Check, sponsored by BetMGM. We will catch you again next Wednesday at 6. Good luck tonight.